Hi everybody, this is foXnoMad, and today I want to help you travel smarter by answering a question that a lot of you are probably getting, a question that I'm getting a lot, which is, should you cancel your travel plans in the wake of the coronavirus? And that question can really be broken down into several parts. When are you going? Where are you going? Why are you going? And with one important caveat above all of that, are you in any of the high risk factors for having a severe case of coronavirus, or are you in contact with any of those people in the high risk groups? So I'm not going to talk about the medical side of corona. There's a really good Joe Rogan Experience podcast episode with Michael Osterholm, which I'll leave a link to down in the description below. That answers all of your questions about corona. It's an hour-long podcast, and I highly recommend you listen to it. It really dispels a lot of myths and a lot of rumors and things that are going around about corona. So all the medical information is going to be in that podcast, which I'll link to below. This is really about your travel plans. So let's start out with the when of the question. If you're traveling anytime soon, this is a question whether or not you should cancel your travel plans that's probably come up. I'd say if you're traveling from the United States to Europe, you know that the travel ban is in place until April 15th. And I think a lot of other countries might follow suit. A lot of major events have also been canceled, and using the middle of April as sort of a deadline for when they're going to reassess the situation. So if you're traveling between now and April 15th, you probably want to hold off on a lot of those plans depending on where you're going. So if you're going to a place where there's absolutely been no coronavirus, or there's been no closure of public events or borders, obviously those places you probably have a better chance to actually make your trip. One of the big things about coronavirus, aside from the virus itself, is that you might potentially get stuck in a place and not be able to get back home on time, or not be able to return because of a border closure, or because of an airport closure, or because of flight cancellations. So that's another thing that you need to consider when you're traveling. So between now and about April 15th, there are probably going to be a lot more cancellations coming up. So if your travel plans are into one of those high-risk areas, so Europe, Asia, North America right now look like they are really locking down on coronavirus, you're probably going to want to cancel those travel plans if they haven't already been canceled for you. For the other parts of the world, this is a very dynamic situation, but Colombia just closed its border with Venezuela, so I wouldn't be surprised to see major events getting canceled there, as well as border closures and flight cancellations also in South America. That's probably going to start happening in Africa as well. So those are some things that you need to consider, and that really comes down to the why are you traveling. So if you're traveling for recreational purposes, a lot of major events are canceled or are going to be canceled. And if you're planning on taking a vacation, the chances of that vacation getting disrupted, at least over the next 30 to 45 days, is pretty high. I recently had to cancel a bunch of travel plans that I made this month at the very last minute. I had to cancel them. I made the plans at the last minute. I canceled the plans at the last minute. So right now, things are changing pretty quickly. So I'd say over the next 30 to 45 days, if you're going for recreational purposes to one of these places that's the hardest hit, chance of something getting canceled on you is probably going to ruin your vacation anyway. So you might want to see if you can go ahead and postpone your plans until May at least. So you want to get into May, because I think that's when there's going to be sort of a major reassessment of the situation, when things start to shake out. I mean, there's been no precedence of an event like this in modern history. So we don't really know how governments, how airlines, how the travel industry is going to react. And as far as cancellation goes, right now, as far as the major travel insurance companies go, most of them are not covering cancellations anymore due to coronavirus. So that means if you book something right now and you're going to go fly somewhere and the trip gets canceled because of coronavirus, because of a border closure, because of some sort of lockdown, then you're not going to get your money back. You're not going to be able to use the travel insurance to go through that. And one company I use a lot for travel insurance, Safety Wing, right now just sent out an email which says you are still eligible for the coverage of coronavirus related expenses unless either of the following applies to your situation. The US Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, if they issue a warning level 3 at your location, which they have in a lot of places, and you arrive there, or you purchase your policy after it was issued. The CDC issues a warning level 3 for your location while you're already there and more than 10 days have passed since the warning went into effect. As of March 11, 2020, the CDC has issued a warning level 3 for the following countries: China, South Korea, and Italy. As of March 11th, the following EU countries, and I'll go ahead and just list all of those there, have been affected. So it says, what if I'm already in a location that receives a CDC travel warning? So after a CDC level warning 3 has been issued, you have 10 days to depart the warned against location to remain eligible for your coverage of coronavirus there. If you stay beyond 10 days, you're no longer eligible for coverage of coronavirus contracted in that location. If you also have relevant coverage under political evacuation benefit in safety wing, that means you'll be eligible for evacuation. People in those affected European countries, for example, are still eligible. It goes on to say that if you still stay in the country despite those 10-day warnings, you're still eligible for the rest of your coverage. You're just not eligible for corona-related claims. So there you go. As this is changing so frequently, I'm gonna leave a link to all of this down in the description below and update that down in the comments below so you can keep track of what insurance companies are doing and their latest statements. And if you booked any flights or accommodation through a travel booking engine rather than through the airline or the hotel directly, you're going to want to get in touch with the booking engine directly, email them, tweet them, do whatever you can to get their attention. They're all really booked up. They're all really full with all of these cancellation requests. So you're going to really have to stay on top of them. And if your trip is like coming up and you can't get in touch with the booking engine, then I would get in touch with the airline directly, try to sort of hit them from both sides and see what your options are. So to break it down, it depends on when you're going. And if you're going within the next 45 days, I would look into really canceling those travel plans, especially if it's to one of those affected countries. If you're traveling internationally, obviously, see if your insurance will cover that, see if the airline will cover that, see if the credit card will cover that you might have insurance through your credit card. See if you can at least get a voucher or at least sort of push your trip off maybe a couple months down the line when the situation is more predictable. So you might want to try to do that. If you were planning on taking an international trip between like now and over the next 4 weeks, I'd probably wouldn't do it. So if you haven't booked things yet, I wouldn't go ahead and book anything right now for international travel. At least for inside of a country, that depends on the country and should be pretty good for that, at least for the time being. But if you're thinking about international travel over the next 30 days and you haven't booked something and you're a last minute traveler type, I'd hold off on those plans because there's a good chance that they might get disrupted and a lot of travel insurance isn't covering corona related cancellations anymore. So I'd just go ahead and hold off until about April 15th, see what the situation is then, and then maybe book something a couple months down the line. But if the answer to why are you traveling isn't recreational travel, isn't vacation, if it's something important, if there's a family situation or whatever, then you've got to assess that situation on its own. You're going to want to contact your travel insurance company. You're going to want to contact the airlines. You're going to want to contact the hotel you might be staying at. So you've got all these different layers of the travel industry that you've got to go through for your trip. Make sure you check out that podcast I linked to below. It'll tell you how to protect yourself from coronavirus and how to protect others from coronavirus. I also get into details about wearing masks and the different types of masks and how those can help on the foXnoMad podcast. A couple episodes ago, I covered it. I'll leave a link to that in the description below as well. So to recap, if you haven't made any international travel plans yet and you were thinking to travel within the next 30 to 45 days, I would hold off on those plans because events are getting canceled, flights are getting canceled, and borders are being closed. So I'd go ahead and wait on those plans. If you're planning on traveling after that, I'd still keep those plans because there's still enough time to see how that's going to shake out. And if you already booked something and you were going to be traveling like this week or right now, then I'd go check with your travel insurance company to see if you can get a refund, maybe to get a voucher for future travel or to get your money back altogether. So I hope this answers the question whether or not you should cancel your travel plans based on coronavirus closures and all the coronavirus news going around. If you have any questions for me directly, let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll have new videos for you every week. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.